All right, folks, welcome to Matrix Live. This week, it's all about demos. So without further ado, we'll dive in. Just to give you a heads up, Nad's going to talk to us about spaces. Kegan's going to take us all through low bandwidth and our adventures there. Bruno is going to talk about notifications in hydrogen, and Eric is going to talk to us about DMs across the Gitter Matrix divide. So Nad, are you out there?
I am. Hello. All right. So this is going to be a bit of a co-demo of myself and Vela, and we're going to run through a few different journeys on spaces. So first things first, I'm just going to share my screen. And then just before we dive in, can I show my face as well? I can't I? There we go. Hopefully you can see me. Hopefully you can't. So yeah, spaces, just at a really high level. We've spoken about these a couple of times before in Matrix Lives, but principally, it's the ability to group rooms together. So think Slack workspaces. You join a workspace, there's multiple channels rather than just Matrix where there's just one room. Discord servers, again, you join a group of rooms, an entire community rather than just joining one room. And that's really the heart of what spaces are. And we've spoken about them before and we've demoed them before. And just to give a little bit of a timeline, a bit of an update of the state of play, shall we say. Last month, we previewed spaces at FOSDEM. We were using development branches against Dendrite. We used Dendrite because it was useful just to quickly R&D a few different areas where we could just do that with more ease. And then really over the last month, we've been maturing implementations on web and Android because in February, we kind of covered a lot of ground, but we needed to polish. We also moved away from developing against Dendrite and we started implementing support in Synapse. And we also have been maturing and landing MSCs all over the place. If you've been following the MSCs, you've probably noticed that we've gone from one big monolithic MSC, and we've been working towards having smaller, more manageable ones. And on iOS, we've been doing initial SDK support there just to lay the groundwork. And today, really exciting, as of yesterday, I think, we shipped initial support on Synapse on matrix.org. And as we speak, I believe we're shipping support on Develop on web. And we're going to show you what that looks like. And so we have a demo, slightly dangerous. We're doing something very eccentric where I'm going to run us through the web over here. And then I've got a secret Jitsi with Vela, who's going to be showing us.
Just a quick interruption. Yep. I think you're going to have to turn off your video feed because it's destroying your screen share quality.
I think it's not the video feed. I think it's your bandwidth full stop.
No, it's a Firefox issue when you're screen sharing and sharing your video.
Oh, I'm not in Firefox.
Oh, interesting. Okay, it is bandwidth.
Yeah, it's just bandwidth now. If you can get more bandwidth somehow, you're going to need it. Although you are now legible, whereas you weren't before. So actually, it's fine. Go for it.
Yeah, great. All right. So back in here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to show is creating a space. So I'm actually just going to create a public space because that's what we're focusing on at the moment. And this is an insight into the psyche of developers that have been working on this too long. We've ended up with loads of fruit-related spaces. So let's just pick this guy. And then let's create a space and call it Banana World. And we can say that we are bananas about bananas. Here we go. So we're creating this public space. Dangerous demo. Why are we waiting for the server? Great. All right, so that's created a space, and the first thing I'm being asked is, okay, bug, we'll ignore the bug. First thing I'm being asked is what rooms do I want to have in the space? So let's have, I don't know, one room about banana bread, one room about types of bananas, one room about eating bananas, whatever. Just create that there, and immediately I'm asked to share this with people. I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm just going to go to the first room. And so one thing here is that late last year, we put a lot of effort into trying to improve the metadata in rooms in general. And the reason for that is really just so that when you're new to a room, then it's more useful, basically, and it's more recognizable. So all of that's even more important now with spaces. And so I'm going to go through here and I could just add a few different things here so that when Vela joins the space, he feels really welcomed into a really good place for banana lovers. So I'm just going to add those, and then you'll also notice that here we've also updated this to highlight, or rather to give people the option of inviting people to an individual room or to the space at large. And so actually, I'm just going to invite Valère to the space. I'm going to do that by just sending him a link to it for now. So I'm just going to go to our spaces room and say Valère, go that way. Here we go. And then hopefully on the right, so I'm going to look at my banana space, and hopefully on the right, we'll see Valère look at the link and then join.
It's very laggy because I see it's not moving on your side, because I left that screen long ago.
Ooh, let me refresh this.
Oh yeah, it was back. Do I have to reshare? No? Okay. So I'm going to click on the link. And okay, I can see it, but you can't see it. Let's wait. So I can see that there is Banana World, and there is one person I know that has already joined. I think it's enough for me. I will join. So for your
one thing I'll just add, sorry, go on for that.
Yeah, just to say that it's I'm already in. It's just laggy on the stream. So let's just wait. I don't know why it's so laggy. No. Okay, you see it. So this is what I see now. I'm being invited, and there's a welcome message, and I can see some rooms. I'll let you go, Ned. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so just really when you join a space, we're expecting people to rely on the source of the invite more so than, say, wanting to browse a space extensively, which is one thing that we've kind of learned more recently through testing. And another thing is you notice there that we were telling you who you already know in the space, and that's we've been looking at how we can add more social proof to all of this basically throughout. And so if you do have people in common in the space, we think that's really important, especially for kind of community use cases. And so the really nice thing is here, I can see that I already know Valère, and so I can click on him, and then we can see our conversation, and then we could talk about bananas if we wanted to. And so obviously bananas is a little bit abstract, a little bit strange, but we do have, oh, I just got a message. Great. Very good. But we do have other useful spaces as well. So if I go to home, I'm just going to go to our spaces room. The other thing that you notice, sorry, is that the switching should feel really familiar to anyone, basically just being able to switch between entirely different spaces and then look at different views of the world pretty much. So I'm going to go into here, and then we've actually set up a new public matrix space. So I'm going to hit join. And again, it's really nice that I can see, oh, wow, I didn't even know we had that. That's awesome. I can see people that I already know that are in the space. I'm going to hit join. Oops, I'm not going to hit it that aggressively. And then again, it looks like I know a lot of people in this space, which is great. I can browse the space, including seeing topics and things like that. And there's a few different things going on here. So first of all, I can see existing DMs that I have with people. This is an assumption that we're making at the moment, where we think it's really valuable to just keep the context that you have with people. In practice, we also need to get some more feedback on this, because the inverse is that you get notifications everywhere. For example, if someone messages you in a DM, so it's a bit of tweaking to do there. Some other new stuff to call out is we have a concept of suggested rooms. So if you're an admin of a space or a moderator of a space, and you want to suggest initial content for people to join, then we have that here. And we're also trying to surface what we think are the most important actions that people want to do within a space in the room list. So things like if you're an admin, prompting you to invite people because you're probably going to have a better time. If you're not, being able to browse the space and things like that. And in a nutshell, that's spaces really. So here I've got Matrix HQ, the official Matrix HQ, which is a part of the Matrix space. And hopefully with spaces, I can organize my worldview of Matrix into much more useful views. And likewise, admins and moderators of communities can do the same. And we think this will just sort of flip Matrix slightly on its head and sort of change the paradigm slightly of everything. Is there anything, before I talk about Valeria, is there anything else that you want to show off on Android specifically?
Just a word. I know why it was not moving. Actually, I have to focus my over Jitsi, but I cannot see what is on your screen then. So yeah, not much. I've been browsing a bit, so you can see the matrix space here. I have the settings where I can, I mean, like on web, add new people. Here I can see the overroom on the space. And the creation flow, I can just show it quickly on the mobile. It's very similar to web. The same thing. I can just click next and it will create some default room for me. And then after I just have to invite people to my space, and these rooms will be suggested by default. So there is a huge chance that people will join it. So it's taking some time to create. I don't know why.
I might, just in the interest of time, because you've already been able to show off switching and stuff, I might just switch to the kind of recap, if that works for you. Or is there anything?
Go ahead, while it's doing that.
Cool. And we can tab back as well. But yeah, just to kind of cap off as well. Couple of things. So the first thing is just a warning that right now we're using unstable prefixes for everything. Spaces may break at any time, and we can say with some certainty that they'll break at release. So just a warning not to use them and to expect them to be long-lived. We're figuring a lot of things out. Otherwise, just to give a bit of insight into our focuses and our priorities, we're first focusing on public spaces, so the kind of communities use cases we just had a look at. Then we're going to turn our focus to private spaces. The reason why we're doing this is actually the goals can vary quite differently. So for example, with communities, we'll focus more on broadcasting spaces by URL and by web address. And for private spaces, we'll look at things like improving email invites, because if you're using them in a team, you're probably collaborating with people by email, for example. And then we'll look at sort of polishing things all round, including things for admins and moderators. And then finally, with all of that in place, we'll have a look at more complex use cases like subspaces and hierarchies. And so we're expecting to apply effort in roughly this order, even though they are kind of intermangled slightly. Yeah, and in terms of testing, you should be able to test and develop, if not now, within minutes or hours. Otherwise, on Android, we're figuring out a better way to distribute, but if you join the Spaces feedback room, we can help you out with an Android testing build. Need to be testing against Synapse. At the moment, we have deployed to matrix.org, so feel free to test against there or grab a development build. Otherwise, feedback's welcome in the Spaces feedback room. Feedback's also welcome in GitHub issues, just in the Android or web repos for now. And otherwise, if there's anyone out there watching this that runs an online community of any flavor, if you're using Discord presently, if you're using IRC, if you're using anything, if you're using Matrix, we'd love to talk to you, because we'd love to just get a little bit closer to the problems that you have at the moment and just try and make things better for you, pretty much. And that's Spaces as of today.
Tremendous. Thanks very much, Ned. Does anyone have any questions there?
I just want to say that bananas. Well done.
Sure,
we're slowly working our way through every fruit.
This is the long-term goal of Matrix, right? We just wanted a safe space to talk about bananas, and now we're pretty close. Pretty close. All right, moving on then. Kegan, are you out there?
Hello. Yes, I am out here. I will share my screen, and then we can do stuff. That will probably work. So presumably, not that one, this one, and that one. Can you hear me? And can you see slides?
Yes.
Yes. Beautiful.
You can. You've stolen Neil Alexander's aesthetic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I use that for all my slides now, so it's great. So basically, the past couple of months, I've been working on low bandwidth matrix, What this basically means is we send less data to the server, and the server sends less data to us as a phone or a laptop or a browser, whatever. Basically, going to talk a bit about it, do some demos. It's going to be fun. First of all, why do you care about this? There's a few reasons why you should care about this. If you're on mobile data and you pay per gigabyte, obviously transmitting and receiving less data is going to be cheaper for you. It's faster if you are downloading, you don't have to download as much data in the first place. Your battery will last longer because you're not having to transmit as much data or receive as much data, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole bunch of benefits why low bandwidth matrix is actually really, really good and desirable. But as with everything, there are trade-offs with this. So the main trade-offs, though, not too big. Main trade-offs are that as a developer, it's a lot harder for you to now introspect and look at what's traveling between the client and the server, because everything is now binary. It's not human readable. It makes it a bit harder to play with things on the command line, so you can't easily curl things anymore. And if you are running in a web browser, unless you're using one of the web technologies, HTTP, WebSockets, or WebRTC, you basically can't join in. You can't play around because you just can't use, you don't have control that load down on the stack. But those are some of the trade-offs we make, and it doesn't mean it's going to be impossible for browsers to do this, but at least initially, it's not going to be possible. So a brief kind of look at how it works. We're going to cover certain levels of the stack of what we currently have in Matrix, and for what the low bandwidth version of the equivalent, effectively. So if you type a message, so you say hello world, that doesn't get compressed in any way. That's just the message that you type. There's no real changes there. For your data format, that does change. So normally that message is wrapped in a JSON object. Now it gets wrapped in a CBOR object, which stands for Compact Binary Object Representation, which I'll talk about in a little bit. At the application layer, that JSON object then gets put into in an HTTP request as a body. And in the low bandwidth version, this gets put into a COAP request, which stands for Constrained Application Protocol, which I'll also speak a bit about. That then, if you're in the current stack, we use HTTPS, which uses TLS. In the low bandwidth version, the equivalent is DTLS, which is datagram TLS. And then at the transport layer, all this is sent over TCP, whereas in the low bandwidth version, we're actually using UDP. So quite a few changes there, but I'll talk a little bit about them very briefly, because you could talk about this for quite a while. So the first thing is we're now using CBOR instead of JSON, and it's really, really easy to use CBOR. If you can serialize and deserialize structs is JSON, you can do the same with CBOR. If it works as JSON, it'll work as CBOR, and it's great. It's a one-to-one mapping. It's fantastic. The thing is, if you just do that, you're not going to reap the benefits of CBOR, because primarily CBOR will compress things like numbers, objects, arrays, and booleans in a more compact binary representation. But if you're using strings, those strings still need to be represented. They still need to live somewhere in that CBOR. So if you have lots of key value pairs, which are all strings, which Matrix has tons of, then you're going to have a bit of a problem, because you're going to see that text everywhere. So one of the things you can do is, instead of using strings for your keys, you use integers instead. And then you make a big old list of these keys, these string keys mapped to these integers. And that's basically what I did. So you can see a little example there, just take a little snippet of things like event ID mapped to the number 1. This is a really nice solution, because JSON does not allow integer keys, but CBOR does allow integer keys. So that namespaces this quite nicely. So you can use the optimized form, and there's no ambiguity there of, oh, did you actually mean like the number 1 as a key? Because that's just not possible. You can obviously stringify that 1, but then that would be treated as a string and treated differently. The second thing is we're now using COAP instead of HTTP. COAP also defines a bunch, like the RFC defines a bunch of integer enums for certain things, which is very familiar here. This seems to recur, that integer enums for everything. But things like the path and query parameters, they are still full, they're in their entirety. They are strings. They are there represented in the COAP. So it'd be a lot better if we didn't have to use all the long matrix paths and instead could just use, say, like a single character. So that's another thing which has changed. So instead of the sync endpoint there, it's replaced with the number 7. No real reason why 7, just is. And obviously some places have got path parameters. So if you've got path parameters, you basically just scan left to right in your path segments. And then, so if you scan left to right on number 9 there, you see you've got room ID, then event type, then transaction ID, and therefore the overall URI path is 9/ and then your path parameters. So it's very methodical, very mechanical. So it's easy to know what that would be. So we did that as well. And then finally for TLS, TCP, it's now using DTLS and UDP. Matrix, we need to have reliable ordered delivery. So why not just stick with TCP, right? Because I mean, why bother going down the UDP route? But if you use UDP, you have a lot of control over your packets, and that's really, really nice. You can do all sorts of funky things. So one of the things is CoAP supports a thing called piggyback responses. So normally in TCP land, if you were to send a request to the server will send an acknowledgement, TCP acknowledgement. So yep, I got that. Thanks very much. And then it will send back the response at some point in the future. CoAP can actually combine those responses. So it'll send back the acknowledgement of the request and say, yep, I got this request. Oh, and by the way, here's that response that you wanted. Obviously, it can't do this if the server's going to process the request for a really long time. But if it's only a little bit of time, then it can actually piggyback these responses, and therefore you send fewer packets. So basically, having that control is very, very useful. Obviously, you want the connection to be secure as well. And DTLS is basically just TLS for UDP. The protocols are the same. The main changes is that it can support out of order for the handshake, and it will remember bits and pieces of the handshake, just to make it a bit nicer for UDP. And that's really about it. So those are the changes on the stack. And you might be asking, hang on a second, I'm getting a weird sense of deja vu here. I'm sure we've seen this before, and you would be correct. 2 years ago, there was this blog post which Matthew made, and now you can see there's the stack that was used here, which was CoAP and CBOR, which we now know. But then there's these things, noise and flate, which are weird and strange, and we haven't spoken about them. And so really, what's the difference between this work and the current work? And really, there's a few changes. We're not using noise, we're using DTLS. Noise gives you a bunch of cryptographic primitives, which you can then combine in weird and interesting ways. And maybe for ultra optimized, ultra low bandwidth, it might be a desirable property to use. But really, DTLS is kind of it's fairly widely used. And when it comes to crypto stuff, you want to just kind of stick with what we kind of know. So we're using DTLS. We're not using flate. Flate is effectively gzip. You can think of it as gzip. We are not currently gzipping anything. There are reasons for this. Gzipping very small payloads, there's headers that get added, and that can inflate the payload size. So for small messages, it's not great. And you can do streaming versions of this, but then you have to make sure that you actually have a coherent stream, so you can't do concurrent requests, and then you have all sorts of problems. So there's no compression in its forms of flate at the moment. The current work will actually do a thing called CoAP Observe. This is basically a fancy way of saying the server will send updates to the client whenever there are new events. So you don't have to long poll using sync anymore. And also just the demo 2 years ago was a proof of concept, right? It had limitations, it had made certain assumptions about the environment that it was operating under. So as a result, though, it meant that the demo could do really amazing things. 90 bytes to send a request, which was 7.2 seconds on 100 bits per second. The current work is about twice as much as that. So it's about 200 bytes out, 140 bytes in. So that's going to be twice the amount of time to send over 100 bits per second. And all this work will be written up as an MSC in the coming weeks, and is designed to work on the public internet. So it's kind of no longer just a proof of concept. It's going to be actually pushed out there, and it's going to be hopefully good. So a little bit of a demo, hopefully. Is everyone still with me?
Yep.
Cool, thank you. Because it's always unnerving when no one says anything, and you're like, have I disconnected? I'm speaking to myself, but I'm not.
You might need to zoom in slightly.
This is unimportant. You don't really need to see the text here. The bottom part is just a dendrite, custom dendrite, running the CoAP stuff, and the top is just a TCP dump. So this is unimportant what's on the screen, but it's just to let you know that I'm running those things. The things which is probably more important is this. This is my phone. This is running a modified version of Element Android. And there's a new thing here called low bandwidth. And if you click on that, you can see the packets that have been sent and the packets that are received and the total amount of bytes that are sent and received. You can see that's live updates. So that you see that has gone up by 1 packet because there is a keep alive that is done once a minute. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a message and we can see how that changes. So we're currently at what, 5898 sent packets. And then I can come into here and I can say, hello world again, because I've clearly done this too many times. And then I can come back to here. It was 58928, was it? And we're at, so that's like what, 928. So, you know, that's 500, 600 bytes, something like that. So what we can do now is we can see, so these numbers are actually pulled from the operating system. We can now kill this and have a little look at those packets over here, and then I'm done. Here we go. So I've been running this for ages. So you can see there's lots and lots of keep alives being done here. If we go all the way down to the bottom, you can see the stuff that was done here. So there were a few things that were done, setting breadcrumbs, but the important thing is this one, which is sending the actual message. And you can see we're using DTLS. Within that, we're using CoAP. And then within that, we have CBOR with the unsigned integer as our key and our text string saying hello world. And then we get our response back along with the acknowledgement. This is the piggyback response I was talking about. And then we're getting pushed an event, which is on /7, which is sync. And then we're acknowledging that we got that sync payload back to the server. And that's it, really. So that was two full requests, effectively, which includes the remote echo. If we didn't have remote echo, then you wouldn't even be pushed this response at all, in which case it would just be 2 packets, 1 in, 1 out. And that's it. So this is low bandwidth matrix. This is hopefully the future. And you can see here, this was 173 bytes to send that. So it's a bit better actually than the 200 that I quoted before, but you know, in round figures. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. We're a little tight on time, so I'm going to jump straight into the next one. If you have questions for Kegan, send them to him out of band. Bruno, are you out there to talk about notifications in Hydrogen?
Yes, I am. I'm just going to join with another Jitsi so I can share my screen and show my phone at the same time. It's
Bruno,
very strange to hear myself in my headphones. Yes, they should be there.
Okay.
Can you see my screen? Yes. Right. I think you can see my screen.
Yes. Yep.
We can.
Cool. Okay, so here you have Hydrogen, and in the release this week, push notification support was added. This entailed adding web push support to Signal, which in the future also be useful for other web clients. So in the UI, the only thing that changed here is in the settings, a way to enable push notifications. If you enable them, you get this notification to show that it's enabled. So I've got this test room here. And if I type a message here, hello Matrix world, then on my phone, I should get a notification on that room. Can take a few seconds to arrive. There it is. So then I don't know if you can read this through my webcam, but you should see the notification on the phone. If I click that, it opens Hydrogen on my phone, and then I can reply. Well, I need to switch room. If you're in the room, it won't show you the notification because that would be a bit noisy. But you can see sometimes push is a bit faster or slower than sync. I have it open now, but it should show me notification here on my desktop. Let's see this. Hello. I click it and it goes to the room. And that's it, basically. In the future, there are going to be improvements to it, like being able to decrypt your end-to-end encrypted messages. Right now, it will just say new message for that. Yeah, some other improvements. But yeah, that's it.
Cool. Thank you very much. I'm gonna keep just pushing on. So if you have any questions for Bruno, please do reach out of band. Eric, DMs across the Gitter Matrix divide. Are you out there? Are you ready?
Hey, Matrix Live, I'm going to be demoing direct message conversations today. So first up, we have a conversation here. They're asking about a fox. I told them they could try jelly for whatever reason, and they want to continue the conversation in a DM. So we can click on their name, say direct message, and this will create a DM conversation on the Matrix side and what we call a one-to-one conversation on the Gitter side. They'll get invited to the room, and it'll create the whole bridge connection there. So we can say, hey, about that fox. And then the message will appear, and we'll be able to chat back to them. Wow. My first Matrix DM. So we can see messages flowing back and forth. Next steps for this are being able to start from the Gitter side. So currently, you saw I started it from the Matrix side, but soon we'll be able to make it so you can hover on a Matrix user and say, start a DM conversation, start a one-to-one, and be able to chat back and forth. But it'll be the same room, same sort of functionality there. I'll hand it back off to Neil now for the next demo.
Super cool. Thank you very much, Eric. Right, folks, that's it for Matrix Live. Until next time.